All right. All right. All right. Welcome to 6G Agenda. We are doing the book club today instead of Monday, switching it up a little bit. Let me know if you can hear me well. Let me know if it's loud. Give me a little quick comment. Is this loud? I had to mess with my audio a little bit. Hopefully it's all good. But we are going to get into a good one this time. It's going to be great. It's all about Hermes, thrice greatest, Trismegistus. It's going to be a deep dive. But I think we're going to get some enlightenment on the similarities of religions. I think, a lot of people, I think, ask themselves that, what are the similarities with other religions? And is there a underlying universal philosophy within it? And I'm here to say that it could be. I don't know. According to this story about Hermes, this might be the source of it, as a matter of fact, of where and why we see so many similarities with religions to, like Christianity and paganism, and different things like that. And so we're going to get into that. Hermes it's going to be great. Manly P. Hall, The Secret Teachings of All Ages. That is the deal. That's what we're into. Just kind of letting people, seeing if people pull up to the book here that we're on. There you go. The best. Nothing but the best. So we're going to get into the story. Hermes, is he a real guy? Is this a legend? Thoth is thought to be the same as Hermes. We're going to get into that. You may have heard that. The Emerald Tablets. It also connects back to him as well. A man divinized by his legendary greatness, or was he God himself in the flesh? That's the question that we're going to be trying to figure out here. So, Manly P. Hall, he quotes somebody, Francis Barrett, as saying of Hermes, if God ever appeared in man, he appeared in him. And so, we're going to get into it. His transcendent learning caused Hermes to be identified with many of the early sages and prophets. So, could this be a universal kind of consciousness that these people are achieving where they could relate? So we're going to get into all the aspects of who and what Hermes could be. There's a lot of different angles you could take this from. So it's gonna be a good time. I'm here alone without Justin today. That's okay. He's out. We had to move it to Tuesday today because of me, and so I'm gonna be doing this alone. It's gonna be a good time. It's gonna be different. It's how we do it. Switching it up. First off, thank you for anybody that enjoyed the last episode with Jason Bassler. That was a great time. Got into flock. If you didn't hear that, it's coming. It's I just saw a map. There's about 95,000 flock cameras across all the counties in America currently, and it's going to keep growing. So hopefully you guys check that out as well. We got into all that. That was a good time. All right, so let's get into it. We're going to get into Hermes Trismegistus, Secret Teachings of All Ages. Let's see if I can't find you a PDF. I don't think it's possible. I've tried many times. Maybe we can. Usually they cut out a bunch of pages whenever we do, though. So let's see here. Oh, we might have got lucky. Let's see if we can't find a certain place here. Hermes. Boom. We'll get that pulled up. 1 second, making sure you got it. Okay. This is taking forever. I think it's faster if we just do it ourselves. Oh. There we go. Huh? There we go. Oh, I see. So this is going through the chapters. We're going to get to it. Hermes, here it is. Life and teachings of Hermes Trismegistus. So I'll keep this kind of pulled up. I'm not necessarily going to be reading from it, but this is great. Let's get this out of the way for you. All right. Right. So a lot of sacred ceremonial initiationary practices are done in rites that are related and ode, like an ode to Hermes. Thoth as well from Egyptian pyramids. We're going to get into that next week. It'll be the initiation in the pyramid and the kind of concept behind that. You don't know. Um, they both are the same entity, same deity, same concept, same consciousness. One could say maybe even the idea of Christ consciousness gets into this. So I'll let you be the judge. We're just going to lay out some information. All right. We kind of led into it. Let's go ahead and get started. There are many divine teachers like Hermes, which you can't find their etymology and their whole life story. A lot of times that indicates that they represent a state of consciousness, and it's actually multiple people in history that maybe embody that one person, or that multiple people have achieved the same idea, consciousness as that person, perceivably to people, to where they attribute that person to be a Hermes, right? And the reason why I say this is because when Hermes was alive, he was said to have written 42 books with 10,000 volumes. Clearly, that's got to be an allegory for, because no mortal can do that, right? So he's essentially could be more than one person. He's the god of speech and interpretation and divine speech personified. So if you think about it, it makes sense that he would be representative of the philosophical types who have achieved a gnosis, not Gnostic, but gnosis level of understanding, which we'll get into that, but it's pretty much kind of what I think is going on there. There are many divine teachers like Hermes throughout history that have written and authored books under his name. So if you know about Hermes, he had something called the Poimander, which it was like a vision. And he had this where he spoke to an entity and he learned a lot from it. And he gained a lot of divine truths. And we'll get into the Poimander of Hermes. I think it's definitely worth getting into. It's kind of deep. It's definitely a little wild, but that's all right. We're gonna get into that. I don't love doing this without Justin, but it'll be fine. So Thoth and Hermes are recognized as the same entities, Thoth being where we derive the word thought from. This deepens the evidence that they could be both related, being that Hermes is the god of interpretation, divine speech personified. Said to have written over 10,000 volumes of 42 books, it's clearly an allegory, as I said. And even the idea of 42 goes back to the 6 7 that we kind of talked about the other day, relating to Hermes, Thoth, and enlightenment. This could be the inverted version of this enlightenment mind, right? The lower to get to the higher, 6 7, right? That is 42 when multiplied together, right? That gets into like the Pythagorean style way of achieving the Hermetic philosophical enlightenment that they would talk about. Math, science, all these different things. We'll get into it, but those started in esoteric schools before they became public knowledge. And we're kind of taught the material version, lacking the spiritual backing, with the divine truths that are backed up, like math, for instance. There's people that allegedly could tell the future with it. There's a lot of divine truths that they could learn out of it. Excuse me, but we're only taught about, like, you know, multiplication. So it's things like that where we're not given the spiritual aspect. Exoteric, not the esoteric. So whenever getting into Hermes and Thoth, you realize that both of them have a very elusive history. It's very hard to figure out, like, in lockdown. where they actually came from, who they actually are. They have a lot of things attributed to them. All of the sciences are attributed to Hermes and what he brought. Why would so many people attribute so many writings to a man, being as divine as he may have been? Why would they not just say they wrote it? Well, when learning his teachings, we see that the concept of the all mind as the deity is the deity that permeates the universe, encompassing all, yet not being one particular thing either. Not lording over the universe, but instead being essentially like an actor in it as well as the creator. It's a piece of it and everything. And so he taught the idea of this perennial philosophy. He didn't really teach it, he actually achieved it. And it was an understanding of this perennial philosophy that kind of exceeds words. It's an intuitive understanding, a knowing, a gnosis. And so Hermeticism inherently is a kind of thing that's locked and sealed away. And back in the day, it did actually represent those words locked, sealed. That would be known as hermetic before or secret. Well, today, a cult could be looked at as the same concept. And I argue that occultism and hermeticism are no different. So the argument is that we have a divinity in us, but when we come to this material incarnation, we become impure, which is not what most of this is about. Uh, which is what most of this is about is the idea of purifying your soul. Spiritual works and doing things of this world that aren't materialistic, right? That are kind of above the primal nature. Because the idea is that we have like a little divine spark of God in us, right? The creator. But when we come into this cosmos, we are in the material realm and instantly that pure self becomes impure. And so the idea is that we can purify the soul. And this gave way to the creation of the mysteries. This kind of originally was the study of the universal law in both the spirit, philosophical and spiritual sense. Later, science, math, herbology, health, all this stuff came out of the esoteric schools. No longer being a secret society anymore when it is revealed to the public. So, for instance, when you give out the secret, it's no longer a secret, so then your society is no longer around after that, if that makes sense. So the Pythagorean cult, for a long time, most people didn't understand the concepts behind mathematics. But when those things were put out there and it was now a public knowing, that's whenever they kind of were gone, right? There was no cult of Pythagoras. It was now for everybody to kind of figure out. And so this is just the nature of things. So the mysteries within the sciences were sealed from the profane. So these are hermetic sciences in nature, right? And so the mastery we see from antiquity like pyramids, things like that, come from the teachings, but were lost over time from the rise of the Roman Empire and their acceptance of all religions and cultures, right? So the Roman Empire did something that nobody really had done yet. Throughout history, you had cultures that when they got taken over, they just kinda took over they were like, "Alright, well, our gods kind of abandoned us or not very strong, so I guess we're gonna go ahead and go with these new conquerors' gods," right? Well, when Rome kinda took over everything, they didn't do that, and so this was kind of the first they cared more about social, political, military, economic. They cared about those things. They didn't really have a preference about spirituality. They're like, "You just practice whatever you want," just like America today. So this created a blend of all the old teachings from many cultures. And this is when everything changed. So obviously, you have the divine truth that comes from Hermes back way before these religions were necessarily created. And whether it's one man or uh, something that came from God himself, whatever, that somebody personified later, whatever you believe, it doesn't matter. What does matter is that there is a divine truth that came from somebody somewhere, more likely God, obviously, or some kind of creator, that was tapped in by a transcendent man, mortal, at one point, who was then deified as after he died into a god, even though more than likely he was a man who transcended understanding to a level of godhood to most men, if that makes sense. And so people started to do religious shopping in Rome because of all this blend of cultures. And this was the first time that this has really been done. And by religious shopping, we're talking about like, oh, I kind of like that more than this. You know, I like the Buddhist kind of let go, do whatever. Or I like the, Christian, you're going to go to hell, whatever. So Christianity wasn't made yet in this part of Rome at this very time, but that's religious shopping. And today we see it all the time. And so people started to do that. And it got to a point where Rome reached Britain. And they had such a mix of ideologies and philosophies and symbology that they put a Persian monument to Mithras, which is like, the guy, the golden haired god that's slaying the bull, well known in Roman culture. Well, that is a Persian, it comes from Persia. And so they built this monument, these Roman legionnaires in Oxford. And guess what? Oxford University happened to be built right on top of that, which I think is a little bit funny because a university is essentially a mystery school, but there's no more mystery schools now because we have universities. That goes back to the concept of when it's given out to public, the secret part goes away. And so now the mystery schools are the universities. And people wonder how people get indoctrinated at universities. Well, that's because this goes back to antiquity. They know what they're doing. They know how to condition the mind, whether it's for good or bad. And so gets a little bit hairy, but people of Rome started to realize that it was one God with many names, and one basic divine principle had to permeate through it because they started looking around, seeing kind of a mix of pagan practices, all these different people with the same kind of number of the pantheons and their gods, or the same kind of rites and practices of how they would sacrifice to their gods. And they started to think like no other logical conclusion could go otherwise is, oh, these people that come from different places may worship a different God, but we have the same basic principle of understanding. And so this became a permeating, penetrating universal power. This was secret at first, and it was only communicated to the elect that were capable of understanding that each one of these religions were essentially had a divine truth within them all. This is the birth of secret societies. Well, I mean, it goes through that happens over time many times, but this is the birth of the secret societies in the Roman cult after Christianity around that time. So this is why Christianity itself is a mix of different pagan practices, because you have the Roman Catholic Church that kind of created and controlled through the Crusades and the pillaging how Christianity was going to evolve. We'll get into it, but Christianity actually had a lot of Hermetic and Platonic style teachings in the beginning, before the Council of Nicaea. After that, it became a more nature Aristotle, who focused more on the natural phenomenon of the world, and this kind of took away from the divine truths within the teachings that was in the Bible before the Council of Nicaea. So very crazy. All right. Eventually, people started to realize that divine truth in all the practices, Christianity itself started as one of these secret societies, and the power and control that the Roman Catholic Church later realized from this monotheism style religion, they decided to take away the Hermetic teachings and the Platonic teachings, which held the divine truths in it. Then they burn the Library of Alexandria. They do the Crusades. They do the controlling and the pillaging of everything they did, right? And then we get led into the Dark Ages and this half memory of this understanding that we once had. It was preserved in Persia for the most part, which led to the Renaissance later. As I said before the Council of Nicaea, Christianity was a Platonic Hermetic religion, later taking on this Aristotelian style teaching, which is really focusing on the natural phenomenon, which I think is why you get these these parables in the Bible that they speak to, like, you reap what you sow, and you get this kind of understanding, but you don't actually get the spiritual realization of, like, God or really life, right? And it kind of only gives this naturalistic, well, that wasn't always there. It used to be a lot deeper. Every religion today has an esoteric version of a mysticism behind it, right? So there's kind of two versions of every religion. And that's something that I kind of noticed a long time ago. I wonder if that's what that is, if that's the Luciferianism inside of it. But then I realized that Luciferianism is kind of like comes out of this idea of gnosis. It's the worship of intellect, but logos doesn't inherently mean intellect. There's this understanding that you can get that has nothing to do with your intellect. It's an intuitive spiritual understanding. And I think that they've taken that concept and they literalized it into this perfecting the mind instead of perfecting your soul, right? And so we'll get into that, but I think that's kind of what's going on. Pretty crazy. So at one point, Christianity, what Hermeticism, this whole idea of Christianity, Hermeticism, it was a pantheistic monotheism. One deity within creation, but it was an all-enclosing spiritual principle, which Plato called logos. And again, when this concept became public, philosophers became mystics because they understood people would take this concept with no humility and come to worship their minds or intellect, which obviously I argue is a major issue today and is what kind of grew out of this inversion of this concept of gaining spiritual understanding intuitively rather than the Gnostic idea of perfecting the mind alone. It's more of a spiritual mixed with the mind, right? So very crazy stuff. That's kind of the basis of some of the notes I had, but I'm going to get into the book here. This is a book club. So we're going to get into some of the real deal stuff that Manly P. Hall was spitting. Because that Poimander vision that Thoth had or Hermes had, it's definitely worth getting into. If you've ever heard of the Kabbalion was created by the three initiates. The Corpus Hermeticum is also what it's called. That's not really where you're going to get a lot of the real philosophy from. That does have the story of Poimander in it if you get the right version, but that actually was created post Renaissance. So it doesn't have the like hermetic truths that you would have found back to the Library of Alexandria. You actually have the hollowed out version, which came after the Crusades. Um, that kind of came out with the Corpus Hermeticum, and it's a misleading misnomer because it says corpus hermeticum, which means the whole principle of what it is, which is hermeticum, but it's not because they only have a hollowed out version. And so anyway, if you want to find the real, where to actually get a great version of what I'm talking about, it's called the Hermetica. So the Hermetica was made by what's his name? What's this guy's name? Let me get you his name. I'm gonna pull it up right here. Copenhaver. So Copenhaver translated the Hermetica into English, and highly recommend picking this up. I think it's really kind of the closest you're going to get to the real teachings of Hermes back in the day. Let me go ahead and show this to you. So, Cambridge Analytica University. All right, so you got the Hermetica right here, $60. Nice. I know I haven't bought it yet either, and they won't even let you get a PDF for it. Brian Copenhaver, the Hermeticum. It's very hard to find PDF for it. This one's in Latin, so they'll let you get it in Latin. But that would be a great place to start if you're into this Hermeticism philosophy. But let's get into what the Poimander of Hermes was. This vision he had, this thing that kind of led to everything, right? So it's kind of important to get into. It is kind of heavy, as far as like there's a lot to go over here, but hopefully you guys enjoy. Better than the notes I feel like I had. They were just kind of quick ones I just had written down. The divine Pymander of Hermes Mercurius Trismegistus is one of the earliest of the Hermetic writings now extant, while probably not in its original form, as we know, having been remodeled during the first centuries of the Christian era and incorrectly translated since. This work undoubtedly contains many of the original concepts of the Hermetic cultus. The Divine Pymander consists of 17 fragmentary writings gathered together and put forth as one work. The second book of the Divine Pymander, called Poimandres, or the Vision, is believed to describe the method by which the divine wisdom was first revealed to Hermes. So let's just get into that. So Hermes was wandering in a rocky, desolate place. He gave himself over to meditation and prayer. Following the secret instruction of the temple, he gradually freed his higher consciousness from the bondage of the bodily senses, and thus released his divine nature, revealed to him the mysteries of the transcendental spheres. He beheld a figure, terrible and awe-inspiring. It was the great dragon, with wings stretching across the sky and light streaming in all directions from its body. The great dragon called Hermes by name and asked him why he thus meditated upon the world mystery. Terrified by the spectacle, Hermes prostrated himself before the dragon, beseeching it to reveal its identity. The great creature answered that it was Poimandres, the mind of the universe, the creative intelligence, the absolute emperor of all. So the idea is that God is the creative intelligence, the mind of the universe, the all mind. And this is that idea that we all, this Christ consciousness. Do I agree with all this? No, not necessarily at all. I think it's worth kind of bringing out because I do think that there's something to it. So, Hermes besought Poimandres to disclose the nature of the universe and the constitution of the gods. The dragon acquiesced, bidding Trismegistus to hold its image in mind. Immediately, the form of Poimandres changed. Where it had stood, there was a glorious and pulsating radiance. This light was the spiritual nature of the great dragon itself. Hermes was raised into the midst of the divine effulgence, and the universe of material things faded from his consciousness. So this dude went into the astral realm, right? Astral projecting. That's essentially what we're talking about here. If that's real, this dude's doing it. But he's doing it he's doing it right. So everything was troubled. Hermes swirled a mysterious watery substance which gave forth a smoke-like vapor. The air was filled with inarticulate moanings and sighings. His mind told Hermes that the light was the form of the spiritual universe, and that the swirling darkness which had engulfed it represented material substance. Hmm. Out of the imprisoned light, a mysterious and holy word came forth and took its stand upon the smoking waters. This word, the voice of the light, rose out of the darkness as a great pillar, and the fire and the air followed after it. But the earth and water remained unmoved below. Thus the waters of light were divided from the waters of darkness. He's pretty much retelling the story of creation right here. Or this is the original story of creation that predates Christianity. That's crazy. The earth and the water next mingled, becoming inseparable, and the spiritual word, which is called reason, moved upon their surface, causing endless turmoil. What's up, guys? Welcome, welcome. This one's going to be a little tough. We're on our own here, guys. We're on our own. It's okay, though. We'll be all right. So then again was heard the voice of Poimandres, but his form was not revealed. I, thy God, am the light and mind which were before substance was divided from spirit and darkness from light. The word is reason, and of thought and reason shall divide the light from the darkness and establish truth in midst of the waters. So reasoning faculties are not worshiping your intellect necessarily, but he's saying that this idea of reasoning and thought is what divides the light from the darkness and establishes truth in the midst of the waters. It says, understand, O Hermes, and meditate deeply upon the mystery. Shoot, then again, sorry, I was reading that. Andrew, you need to have a choof break. It's been at least 30 minutes for you. It has been 30 minutes for me. I just started. Choof break. What's that? All right, I muted you. I took a little chief break there. Okay, all right, so let's get to it. So it is said that the divine light dwells in the midst of the immortal darkness, and ignorance cannot divide them. So the union of the word and the mind produces the mystery, which is called life. Yeah, that's a fact. The dragon again revealed its form to Hermes, and for a long time the two looked steadfastly upon the other, eye to eye, so that Hermes trembled before the gaze of Poimandres. At the word of the dragon, the heavens opened, and the innumerable light powers were revealed, soaring through cosmos on the pinions of streaming fire. Hermes beheld the spirits of the stars, the celestial controlling of the universe, and all those powers which shine with the radiance of the one fire. The glory of the sovereign mind. Hermes realized that the sight which he had beheld was revealed to him only because Poimandres had spoken a word. The word was reason, and by the reason of the word, invisible things were made manifest. Divine mind, the dragon, continued its discourse. So without word, you can't make manifest. The idea is that man has a divine semblance of God where he can manifest the way God does. It's almost like we're like mini creators. Pretty crazy. The word moving like a breath through space called forth the fire by friction of its motion. Therefore, the fire is called the son of the striving. And then it kind of gets into how like it becomes manifest. We're gonna skip past that. Then the Father, the supreme mind, being light and life, fashioned a glorious universal man in its own image, not the earthly man, but a heavenly man dwelling in the light of God. The supreme mind loved the man, and it fashioned and delivered to him the control of creations and workmanship. The man desired to labor, took up his abode in the sphere of generation, and observed the works of his brother, the second mind, which sat upon the ring of fire, and and having beheld the achievements of the fiery workman, he willed also to make things. As his father gave him permission, the seven governors, of whose powers he partook, rejoiced and gave the man a share of its own nature. Seven powers, seven sciences, seven arts. The man longed to pierce the circumference of the circles and understand the mystery of him who sat upon the eternal fire. Having already all power, he stooped down and peeped through the seven harmonies, and breaking through the strength of the circle, made himself manifest to nature and stretched out below. Nature, beholding the descent, wrapped herself around the man whom she loved, and the two were mingled. Within him is the sky man, immortal and beautiful. Without is nature, mortal and indestructible. This is man. Thus, suffering is the result of the immortal's man's falling in love with his shadow and giving up reality to the dwell in the darkness of illusion. For being immortal, man was the power of the seven governors, also the life, light, and word. But being mortal, he is controlled by the rings of the governors, fate or destiny. The seven rings, the seven gods, they meant, okay, we're going to break this down. So, the seven rings can be metaphorically speaking, they are the pantheon of gods, right? Kind of. So you have the seven deadly sins, seven, the seven rings of hell, seven gates of heaven. This really is talking about like 7 seals, 7 chakras. So it's this idea of 7 being the passions that you have to overcome, the number 7. Exactly. GZ Mac. Chakras all day. So the sky man, the creator, creates us. We have his divinity in us. We're created here in nature. Nature wraps her hands around us because she loves us. What does that do? It makes us be scared of death. It makes us feel primal. It makes us be attached to the material realm. We are attached to the womb of nature, of mother, right? Sorry for the pounding. Got a little guy upstairs. So nature impurifies our soul. So we must rise above the impurities of nature and get closer to our divine self that we come from. I hope that makes sense. Otherwise, if you're controlled by your passions and your rings of fate and destiny and everything, you don't control your own fate and destiny because you let everything manifest. Like, you don't control it yourself with your own will, aligning it with God's will, of course. So all living creatures, including man, which have been hermaphroditical, were separated, the males being set apart by themselves and the females likewise according to the dictates of reason. Then God spoke to the holy word within the soul of all things, saying, increase and increasing. So this is just getting into all the creation story. But over here, it talks about kind of what I just mentioned. I will not permit the evil senses to control the bodies of those who love me, nor will I allow evil emotions and evil thoughts to enter them. I become as a porter or doorkeeper and shut out evil, protecting the wise from their own lower nature. But to the wicked, the envious, and the covetous, I come not, for such cannot understand the mysteries of the mind. Therefore, I am unwelcome. I leave them to the avenging demon that they are making in their own souls. So he only comes to men that are seeking the understanding of the universal, like, knowledge. Evil each day increases itself and torments man more sharply, and each evil deed adds to the devil deeds that are gone before until finally evil destroys itself. The punishment for desire is the agony of unfulfillment. Damn, the punishment for desire is the agony of unfulfillment. I love doing these book clubs, like, here's the thing, people might listen to this and a lot of this is like gonna go over their head. There's like few people that may, listen to this and actually like listen to understand. Most people will be in and out and not try to. But there's some deep ass shit, like, even if you don't listen to my rendition of it, going and checking out Hermes and everything else, it is so worth it, dude. Because you will get some gems. So I just think it's worth it. It doesn't go over everybody. I'm not talking shit about anybody that listens to this. I'm just saying in general, like, most people will just be in and out. They click through it because this is long form content. This is not quick, fast, whatever. We mix it up. We do chill cast and do that, but this is more like deep dive. The eighth sphere. Ooh, okay. At the death of the material body of man is returned to the elements from which it came, and the invisible divine man ascends to the source which it came, namely the eighth sphere. The evil passes to the dwelling place of the demon, and the senses, feelings, and desires and body passions return to their source, namely the 7 governors. As we said earlier, the 7 governors are the source of these evil sense, feelings, desires, all the body passions. Wow. GZ Mac, Audio Book Club. Fuck yeah. Love it. After the lower nature has returned has returned to the brutishness, the higher struggles again to regain its spiritual state. It ascends to the 7 rings upon which sit the 7 governors and returns to each their lower powers in this manner. So this is going to get into like what they're talking about is attached to these. So check this out. The first ring sits the moon. To it is returned the ability to increase and diminish. Upon the second ring is Mercury. Machinations, deceit, and craftiness go back to Mercury. Upon the third ring sits Venus, and to it return the lusts and passions. The fourth ring sits the Sun, and this Lord are returned ambitions. Upon the fifth ring sits Mars, and to it are returned the rashness and profane boldness. The sixth ring, Jupiter, gets the sense of accumulation and riches back to it. And the seventh ring, as I've always said, 7 represents Saturn. The seventh ring, Saturn, at the gate of chaos, and it is returned falsehood and evil plotting. Then, being naked of all the accumulations of the 7 rings, the soul comes to the 8th sphere, namely the ring of the fixed stars. Here, freed all of the illusions, it dwells in the light and sings praises to the Father in a voice which only the pure of spirit may understand. There's a great mystery in the 8th sphere, for the Milky Way is the seed ground of souls, and from it drop into the rings. In the Milky Way, they return again from the wheels of Saturn. Damn, that's wild. So some cannot climb the 7-runged ladder of the rings, so they wander in the darkness below and are swept into eternity with the illusion of sense and earthiness. So these are people that are like lower sensible people. They're never going to get out of it. It's like this idea of reincarnation and endless incarnation. Well, you got to get rid of your lustful passions. The path to immortality is hard, and only a few find it. The rest await the great day when the wheels of the universe shall be stopped, and the immortal spark shall escape from the sheaths of substance. Woe unto those who wait, for they must return again, unconscious and unknowing, to the seed ground of the stars, and await a new beginning. Those who are saved by the light of the mystery which I have revealed, O Hermes, and which I now bid to you to establish among men, shall return again to the Father who dwelleth in the white light, and shall deliver them. So he's saying, I've just given you the game. Like, this is the game. This is how it works. You got to go out there and tell people. So this is the way of good, and is revealed only to them that have wisdom. Now, here's the thing. You learn this in the Hermeticist practice. It talks about you will only hear something you're ready to hear. Like, your ears will never hear anything that you're not ready to hear, like in the sense of everything happens the way it's supposed to happen when it's supposed to happen. So a lot of people won't hear this because a lot of people don't have wisdom. Oh, people of the earth, men born and made of the elements, but with the spirit of the divine man within you. Rise from your sleep of ignorance, be sober and thoughtful. Rise that your home is not in the earth, but in the light. It's not in the earth, material formation at all. Why have you delivered yourselves unto death, having power to partake of immortality? Repent and change your minds. So this is the first time that a monotheistic repent style God kind of comes into play here with Hermes, way before Christianity, right? And it is a one all mind God that permeates everything. It is the creator of everything, but also it's not like lording over it, but it's like in it, but it's the whole deal, right? And it's the idea of it being connected to thought, logos. Not thought like, but yeah, perfect sacred geometry, shit like that. Like, that's godly shit, right? And so this led way into people creating temples that they believe God, would come down into because it was so perfect. This is where we get all of that creation, is from this kind of concept. Very crazy. Some of who heard mocked and scoffed and went their way, delivering themselves to the second death from which there is no salvation. But others, casting themselves before the feet of Hermes, besought him to teach them the way of life. He lifted them gently, receiving no approbation of himself. Staff in hand, he went forth teaching and guiding mankind, and showing them how they might be saved. In the worlds of men, Hermes sowed the seeds of wisdom and nourished the seeds with the immortal waters. At last, Came the evening of his life, and as the brightness of light in earth was beginning to go down, Hermes commanded his disciples to preserve his doctrines inviolate throughout the ages. In concluding his exposition of the vision, Hermes wrote, "The sleep of the body is the sober watchfulness of the mind, and shutting of my eyes reveals the true light. My silence is filled with budding life in hope, and is full of good. My words are the blossoms of fruit and tree of my soul, for this is the faithful account of what I received from my true mind." Hopefully you guys got that. "Since that day my mind has been ever with me, and in my own soul it hath given birth to the word. The word is reason. The reason hath redeemed me." So reason has redeemed him because he's went into his. It's kind of like the Plato cave, man in the cave. That's the allegory for what he's talking about. He went into the depths, closed his eyes, and he saw the true light. All right, let's see what else we got. We're finishing up right here. The vision of Hermes, like nearly all of the Hermetic writings, is an allegorical expression of great philosophic and mystic truths. Its hidden meaning may be comprehended only by those who have been raised into the presence of the true mind. Damn. So this all leads into the initiation of the pyramid. The initiation of the pyramid is all. I mean, all of this is based off of what we just went over, which is this idea of, like it said here, don't wait. The path to immortality is hard, and if you find it, and a lot of people wait, but woe unto those who wait, for they must return again, unconscious and unknowing, to the seed ground of the stars and await a new beginning. Over and over. You forget, you forget. Then we come here and we're like, man, there's got to be something I'm supposed to do. There's something I'm like supposed, and I think that's what it is, man. People that experience those thoughts, I think that is exactly what it is. I'm looking for the Corpus Hermeticum. I'm thinking about grabbing it. We could read right out of it. I got the Kabbalion too. The Kabbalion's one of those, though, it's not necessarily legit. Fuck it, we'll grab it. It's worth it. Give me 2 seconds, guys. Hold on, I'm trying to find it here. The Kabbalion or the Corpus Hermeticum? Which one you guys want me to grab? Kabbalion has all the Hermetic principles in it, but again, it's philosophical. It's not very spiritual. All right, 1 second. Oh, wow, you guys stayed. Hell yeah. All right, let's fucking get it going. Let's see what we got here. The Kabbalion. Can you see it? The Kabbalion. It's a good book. Hermetic Philosophy by the Three Initiates. And as I said, this is not the Hermetica by the guy I mentioned earlier, which is probably a better one to get. But this right here has got some good philosophical truths in it that are, worth looking, kind of understanding and knowing. But again, you're not going to get the spiritual kind of shit that you're looking for from this. We take great pleasure. Okay, let's get past that. Introduction. Let's get past the intro. See what we got here. From old Egypt have come the fundamental esoteric and occult teachings which have so strongly influenced the philosophies of all races, nations, and peoples for the several thousand years. Egypt, the home of the pyramids and the Sphinx, was the birthplace of the hidden wisdom and mystic teachings. From her secret doctrine, all nations have borrowed. India, Chaldea, Media, China, Japan, Assyria. The Hierophants and the masters of the land of Isis so freely provided for those who came prepared to partake of the great store of mystic and occult lore which the masterminds of the ancient land had gathered together. In ancient Egypt dwelt the great adepts and masters who have never been surpassed and who seldom have been equaled. during the centuries that have taken their processional flight since the days of the great Hermes. In Egypt was located the great lodge of lodges of the mystics. At the doors of her temples entered the neophytes, who afterwards, as hierophants, adepts, and masters, traveling to the four corners of the earth, carrying with them the precious knowledge which they were ready, anxious, and willing to pass on, those who were ready to receive the same. So this is kind of what we'll get into next week, which is the initiations in the pyramid, what it's talking about here. Good stuff. So we kind of went over a lot of this stuff, the principal correspondence. So this will take a minute because there's so many. Okay, so this one goes into them real fast. Okay, that's cool. So there's the principle of correspondence, principle of vibration, principle of polarity, the idea of rhythm, and also the principle of cause and effect, the principle of gender, which has been literalized, and then it gets into mental transmutation. Now, this is Luciferian shit right here. This is the taking of gnosis and making it into a literal mind perfection manual. And that's what they did with the Kabbalion. So the Kabbalion is actually a manual to be enlightened in the Luciferian sense. And again, their Hermetica, the one that was translated by Copenhagen, is more like what you're looking for if you want like a spiritual style teaching of Hermeticism. But like the alchemy, the idea of like transmuting metals, alchemy, the Kabbalion, what Freemasonry has turned into over time, these are all Luciferian initiation things that used to be possibly based in some kind of form of real Hermetic principle teachings of perfecting oneself. I don't believe that's the case anymore for most of those entities. Oh, all the mighty have fallen, right? That's kind of how it goes. So yeah, I gotta get the Hermetica sometime. We'll get more into Hermes, more into Hermetica, more into Thoth. This idea of, because there's a difference between Gnosticism and Gnosis, and this idea of Gnosis, or what Hermes taught. And Gnosticism, again, is like the literalization of the demiurge, making them different. We're in a prison planet. We got to perfect our minds. It's totally different. We'll have to get into all that. But it's been a pretty decent episode. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. It was a little bit of a different one. Doing it alone, man, it's different. If I did it all the time alone, then it would probably be nice, but I don't. So I'm not used to it. But let's see what else I got. I got a few more notes here. All right, so Jeezy Mac, right on, man. So Hermes was the founding father of Judeo-Christian philosophy, 1 to 3 century AD, and Alexandria is kind of the where that was born. I wanted to go over that for sure. It led to the downfall of the Hermetic teachings because it was obviously fucked with. Initiation through several grades, passing through 7 worlds to reach contact with his maker and being with him after. By the way, Hermes apparently was a contemporary of Moses and is instructed in the East and the West. I mean, that's crazy. I didn't know that. But it makes sense because Moses was said to have passed through all the spheres except one. I believe he stopped at the 7th sphere. Like he couldn't get past it, which means he had to come back, which is crazy. What's up, Jeezy Mac? What's up, Scario Witch? Thanks for coming through. If you guys want to get deeper into Hermetic teachings, if you want to get into like some studies on your own, the Hermetica by Brian P. Copenhaver is great. Also, the Hermetica 2 by M. David Lebeya. Hermetica by Brian P. Copenhaver, and the Hermetica 2 by M. David Lebeya. This completes Copenhaver's work. And then also The Way of Hermes by Solomon something. That's a great one as well. So these are all books that you could go look into and you could get yourself for Hermetic teachings. And remember, this is what they kind of teach here. Yeah. Leve. And this is what they teach here. God is without form. 7. Hold on. He has 7 powers, and those are the arts and sciences. Zeus, though, is not. So Zeus is representative of the demiurge worship of the Lucifer, like kind of like the literalizing and thinking that the highest you can go is Zeus, when in reality the creator of everything is even over Zeus, right? But yeah, it's pretty nuts. Cake in a Cup. Can you find the Hermetica that's translated by what did it say his name is? Copenhaver? That's crazy. I'm gonna have to look that up as well. Audiobooks are much easier to read. Yeah, dude. Audiobooks are so much easier to read, dude. Because you're not reading them at all, right? You're listening. No, they are awesome. I'm just talking shit. Let's see here. I did have one more thing. Sorry, guys. I kind of had a few more things with this. I feel like it's worth finishing on. Hold on here. Complex thing. Oops. You guys are hanging, so that's cool. Fuck. Come on. Oh, you bitch. Okay. Wait. Oh, you bitch. Oh, it's not gonna show me. Oh well. Oh well. I was gonna try to pull something up. It's okay. Yep. So that's the Hermes episode. I mean, yeah, we got into a bunch of Hermes stuff. We're gonna get into more Hermes in the future. The messenger, Mercury. Mercury. You know, the messenger god represents the same thing. You know, in Frankenstein, what's kind of funny about this? Oh shit. You know, I do want to say this. The other day, I was watching Frankenstein, the new one, super Luciferian. Holy shit. We're going to have to do a little Frankenstein one. But in the beginning, he's literally kneeling in front of a Hermes statue, praying to it. And then it comes to him in his dreams, like the god. And yeah, dude, this god comes to him and then he like made Frankenstein because he talked to this Hermes looking god. It was pretty crazy. I was like, wow, that relates directly into this. I just thought about it. So pretty nuts. Cake in a cup, gonna go smoke a little haze. Oh shit. Put a little hermetic stuff on, clean the bathroom. Hell yeah. But remember, you know, the hermetic shit's good. Just beware of the Kabbalion. And a lot of the shit out there right now is this Kabbalion, like, you know, Luciferian style philosophy. And we'll get deeper into how you could tell the difference. I feel like I laid it out enough here too. But yeah, the Frankenstein movie was kind of it was different. But I think that I watched it from the study of this transhumanist shit that's coming forward nowadays, especially. I feel like it's pretty timely that they would make that, you know, trying to beat death. Um, that's the whole concept of the whole movie. I mean, you know, so that's what they're trying to do. Live forever. Plug yourself in. New Patreon episode coming out is exactly about that. It's coming out this week. I'll be dropping a clip from it. It's literally about synthetic eternity. It's a study on synthetic eternity, which is essentially plugging in your consciousness. And it's not just a theory anymore. There's actually some studies that are backing up this science. So definitely check out the clip for that episode. We'll have the Patreon out this week as well. Another deep dive on Bell Labs and other ones like it coming out soon too, this week and next week. So be on the lookout for that. And thank you guys. I'll see you next week for the Initiate to the Pyramid chapter on this book. Peace out. Studies done by the people who lie to us. I love it. That's a fact, Jeezy. You know the fuck how I think. All right, I'm out for real this time.